My name is Alicia. I'm standing in the middle of the old stone house at the heart of Maplewood Orchard, looking around at the rooms that hold so many memories. The place that was once a haven of family warmth is now a battlefield, a testament to the betrayal I've endured. It all came to a head at Thanksgiving. We'd just finished dinner, and the air was filled with the gentle hum of conversation and the lingering scent of roasted turkey. But then, my older brother, Ryan, stood up and tapped a spoon against his glass. His face was set, and there was a coldness in his eyes that I'd never seen before. I've already signed the deed. As of today, I'm the owner of this house, he declared, his voice cutting through the silence like a knife. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, for someone to laugh and say it was a cruel joke. But no one did. The room seemed to freeze, and all eyes turned to me. If you don't like it, get out of this family, he added, his words like a slap in the face. I felt a lump rise in my throat, but I refused to let him see me cry. I didn't argue. Instead, I placed my keys beside his leather folder, picked up my coat, and walked out, with everyone watching in stunned silence. Ryan thought my silence was a sign of defeat. What he didn't know was that I recognized the recording number on the deed. I'd seen it 6 months earlier during an insurance investigation of an old mill on the outskirts of town. It didn't belong to Maplewood Orchard. Maplewood Orchard wasn't just any family property. It was a 46-acre cherry farm in the Greenfield Valley, centered around a 180-year-old stone house that had been in my mother's family for 4 generations. My parents, hard-working and honest people, had spent their lives restoring the house room by room while running the orchard. They supplied cherries to local bakeries, markets, and juice producers. 4 years ago, they died in a boating accident on the nearby lake, leaving Ryan and me with equal interests in the property. Ryan lived in the city and worked as a high-flying commercial real estate developer. He wore designer suits, drove a fancy sports car, and looked down on the simple life I led. I worked as a heritage property insurance assessor in town, which meant I spent my days looking at damaged buildings, poring over ownership records, and noticing details that others missed. I visited Maplewood twice a month, paid the groundskeeper, coordinated repairs, and managed the cherry tree plantings. Ryan rarely came unless there was a family gathering or a photo opportunity. After our parents' death, I convinced myself that grief affected people differently. I took on the responsibility of maintaining the orchard, while Ryan focused on his image. This arrangement held until last spring when he started asking very specific questions about the orchard's appraised value, zoning regulations, and how quickly the land could be sold to developers. He asked for tax records, insurance reports, and utility bills, saying he was organizing the estate. Being his sister, I sent him copies, but I kept the original trust agreement safe at the law firm that created it. Ryan didn't seem to know it existed. The morning after Thanksgiving, I drove to a motel outside town and examined the photos I'd taken of the deed. The instrument number was a red flag. A legitimate recording number is tied to a single filing, but Ryan's so-called deed used the number of an unrelated easement in another county. Any professional in my field would have spotted it right away. He'd counted on the shock of his announcement to stop me from looking closely. The next morning, I checked the county land index. There was no deed transferring Maplewood Orchard to Ryan. But there was a deed of trust for a $1.4 million loan against the property. It named Ryan, acting as trustee of the Thompson Family Property Trust, as the borrower. Ryan had never been appointed trustee. And beneath my printed name was a signature that looked like mine but was clearly forged. I immediately called Maya Johnson, an attorney I knew through my insurance work. I sent her the public filing, the photos of the deed, and a summary of my parents' estate. She called me back within 15 minutes. Don't contact your brother. Don't let him know you've found the mortgage. Keep every message, email, and document, she advised. Maya explained that the deed shown at Thanksgiving might have been a show, while the fraudulent loan was the real scheme. If Ryan defaulted, the lender could try to foreclose on the orchard. Even if we proved the loan was invalid, the legal battle could tie up the property for years. That afternoon, Ryan sent a family group message saying I'd voluntarily given up my claim and that my leaving proved I accepted the transfer. He accused me of neglecting the orchard and taking money from our parents' accounts. 2 cousins sided with him, and an uncle told us to keep the dispute private. I wanted to defend myself, but Maya told me to stay silent. Every accusation he made was becoming evidence against him. On Monday, Maya and I met with Mr. Henry Thompson, the senior attorney who'd prepared my parents' estate plan. He retrieved the complete trust agreement from a secure records room. It turned out that Maplewood Orchard had never passed directly to either of us. My parents had put it in an irrevocable preservation trust to prevent forced sales, speculative development, and using it as collateral. Ryan and I were equal beneficiaries, but neither of us owned the land individually. Mr. Thompson had been the administrative trustee for 5 years after our parents' deaths. After that period, control would pass to a successor who met several conditions: a clean financial record, no hidden conflicts, documented involvement in maintaining the property, and completion of an agricultural stewardship course. Ryan met none of these requirements, while I'd unknowingly met them all. My work experience counted towards preservation management, my repair records showed I'd been an active steward, and I'd completed the required course the year before. The 5-year transition date was just 12 days away. Ryan's Thanksgiving announcement was no accident. He'd found out that I was about to become the successor trustee, which would give me the power to review expenses, protect the land, approve leases, and challenge unauthorized transactions. He was trying to establish false ownership before the transition became public. Mr. Thompson also showed us an enforcement clause added 6 months before our parents' death. Any beneficiary who forged documents, hid liabilities, or attempted an unauthorized sale could have their distribution suspended or lose their beneficiary status after a court review. It seemed my father had become worried about Ryan's business practices. Mr. Thompson showed us emails where Ryan had pressured our parents to guarantee a commercial development project using Maplewood as collateral. My father had refused, writing, "The orchard will never be used for Ryan's personal gain." Ryan had always told me our father supported his career, but the records showed their relationship had soured in the last year of our parents' lives. Maya immediately sought a temporary injunction to stop further transfers, loans, changes in possession, or destruction of records. She also notified the title insurer and the lender, Silvercrest Capital Partners, that the deed of trust seemed fraudulent. While the court reviewed our petition, I started looking into Ryan's financial situation. His seemingly perfect life began to fall apart on paper. His real estate firm had lost 2 major clients. A development partnership was facing a lawsuit from a contractor. 3 companies linked to him shared the address of a mail forwarding service. One had borrowed nearly $900,000 before going bankrupt, and another had collected investor deposits for a shopping mall conversion that never got zoning approval. A former colleague of Ryan's, Jake Miller, agreed to talk to Maya. Jake said Ryan had been telling investors that he controlled a valuable family cherry farm ripe for luxury development. He'd circulated drone photos of Maplewood and described it as a $6 million asset. Ryan planned to sell part of the land to a resort company right after Thanksgiving. The $1.4 million loan was meant to keep his other projects afloat until the sale. When Jake challenged the plan, Ryan kicked him out of the partnership and threatened to blame him for the missing investor funds. Jake provided presentations with Ryan's name on them. One slide showed luxury villas over the orchard's oldest cherry trees and the family cemetery. Another proposed demolishing the stone house to build a private event center. Ryan had toasted our parents at family gatherings while planning to destroy their home. Things got even worse when Aunt Helen called. She admitted that Ryan had contacted her weeks before Thanksgiving. He'd claimed I was in financial trouble and had secretly borrowed against the orchard. He'd asked her to support his ownership announcement so I'd be pressured into accepting the reality. In return, he'd promised to pay her medical bills after the property was sold. She hadn't taken the money, but she'd believed part of his story because he'd shown her bank statements with withdrawals in my name. She sent me copies, but I'd never received the money. Maya subpoenaed the records and found that the money had gone to a consulting company controlled by Ryan. He'd used my initial to make it look like I'd taken the money. His accusation that I'd stolen estate funds was a preemptive strike. The emergency injunction arrived on Tuesday afternoon. Ryan was barred from selling, mortgaging, leasing, damaging, or excluding beneficiaries from Maplewood. He was ordered to preserve records and hand over all keys and access codes he'd obtained through the disputed filings. A process server delivered the order while Ryan was meeting with a resort representative at the orchard. According to the affidavit, Ryan turned pale when he read the first page and whispered, "No way. Tell me this isn't true." His smug expression was gone, but the real fight was just beginning. Ryan responded by hiring an attorney to attack my credibility. He alleged that I'd manipulated our elderly parents, hidden estate documents, and fabricated maintenance expenses to gain control. He claimed the trust amendment was invalid because our father had lacked mental capacity when he signed it. He even accused Mr. Thompson of conspiring with me. Some relatives started to wonder if the truth was somewhere in the middle. Ryan thrived on confusion. He released selected emails showing my father asking me to arrange medical appointments and review bills, making it seem like I was controlling our parents. He posted online that a family member was using our parents' death for personal gain. Friends and relatives urged me to compromise, forgive him, or stop humiliating the family. I couldn't understand why this principle only came up after his fraud was exposed. Maya told me not to respond publicly. Instead, we hired a forensic document examiner to look at my signature on the deed of trust. He concluded that it had been assembled from at least 2 source documents and digitally altered before printing. Microscopic analysis showed inconsistent ink density where the false signature overlapped the notary block. The notary, Mrs. Emily Harris, had let her commission expire 3 months before the signing. She initially claimed she'd witnessed Ryan and me sign at Maplewood, but security records proved I was in another town inspecting a fire-damaged courthouse on the day in question. My employer's vehicle log, badge entry, photos, and time-stamped report confirmed my location. Mrs. Harris changed her story, saying she'd notarized a page that Ryan had presented with my signature already on it. 4 days later, one of Ryan's companies paid her $18,000. He called it a consulting fee, but there was no contract, invoice, or work product. Facing possible charges, Mrs. Harris hired a lawyer and cooperated with us. She produced emails where Ryan had asked her to clean up the execution page and promised that the family had already approved the transfer. She also provided a scanned certificate naming Ryan as trustee, which had Mr. Thompson's forged signature. Despite the injunction, Ryan still had physical control of the orchard. He'd changed the exterior locks and removed the recorder connected to the security cameras. Our parents' filing cabinet had been opened, and several boxes were missing. Ryan claimed he'd only taken personal items before receiving the order. Our groundskeeper, Mr. Sam Jenkins, then remembered that the cameras uploaded motion alerts to a cloud account my father had set up years ago. Ryan had removed the recorder but didn't know about the remote archive. After proving the trust's ownership, I retrieved footage from the week before Thanksgiving. The recordings showed Ryan entering the locked study with Mrs. Harris and Mr. Tom Green, a representative from Silvercrest. They photographed estate files, opened my father's desk, and tested keys. In one clip, Ryan held up a page and said, "Once Alicia walks out in front of everyone, we'll document abandonment and take possession." Mr. Green replied, "The lender just wants clean control. Family drama is your problem." Ryan had said the family would support him because he'd already told them I'd stolen money. Thanksgiving had been a staged legal performance. He wanted witnesses to see him declare ownership, demand my keys, and watch me leave. He planned to present my forced departure as a voluntary surrender. Maya said abandonment of a trust interest couldn't be established that way, and the footage proved his intent. It also showed that Silvercrest had known about the ownership dispute before finalizing the loan. We amended our complaint to include Silvercrest and asked for sanctions for the missing files. Ryan's lawyer proposed a settlement. Ryan would give up his false deed if I agreed to validate half the loan, step down as future trustee, and approve the sale of 12 acres. He was asking me to save him by sacrificing the land he'd tried to steal. I refused. Ryan then called me from an unknown number. He claimed outsiders were turning us against each other and said our parents would be ashamed that I'd involved the courts. I asked him if they'd be more ashamed of a lawsuit or a forged signature. He ignored the question and threatened to release proof that I'd caused our mother's health to decline by pressuring her to change the trust. Our mother had died instantly in the boating accident, so there was no such decline. Ryan was grasping at straws. I ended the call and told him to communicate through Maya. That evening, Aunt Helen gave me a sealed envelope my mother had given her shortly before the accident. On the front, it was written, "For Alicia and Ryan, only if Maplewood is ever threatened." Inside were a letter and a memory card. The letter explained that our parents had feared Ryan saw the orchard as a financial lifeline. The video showed them sitting in the Stonehouse study. My father stated that neither of us could mortgage or sell Maplewood individually. My mother looked straight at the camera and said, "This property is a responsibility, not a prize. Anyone who lies, threatens, or divides the family to control it is unfit to protect it." Before the evidentiary hearing, the court ordered mediation. Ryan arrived with 2 attorneys, looking as confident as he did when dealing with investors. He tried to pass off the forged documents as technical mistakes made by careless employees. He blamed Mrs. Harris for the notarization, Silvercrest for not verifying his authority, and me for escalating a correctable dispute. He admitted signing as trustee but claimed our father had verbally promised him control. When Maya asked why Mr. Thompson's signature was on the forged certificate, he blamed an unnamed assistant. When she asked for the assistant's identity, he had no answer. When asked about the estate money that had gone into his company under my initial, he called it an accounting shortcut. Every excuse he made required an invisible person to take the blame. After several hours, Ryan asked for 5 minutes alone with me. Maya objected, but I agreed on the condition that we stay in a glass-walled conference room and that the discussion be on the record. Ryan entered without his jacket, looking tired with dark circles under his eyes. He started by saying he'd never wanted to hurt me. I reminded him of how he'd kicked me out of the family, forged my name, framed me for stealing money, and put our parents' home at risk. He said the announcement had been necessary because I'd never approve a sale. "You treat this orchard like a museum. It's 46 acres of wasted potential," he snapped. "Mom and Dad were sentimental, but you're worse." His apology lasted less than a minute. I asked him how much he owed. He finally admitted that the $1.4 million loan was just part of it. Investor claims, personal guarantees, unpaid taxes, and project losses totaled more than $3 million. He'd used new investments to pay off old debts, hoping a development commission would fix everything. When the financing fell through, the commission disappeared. He thought selling Maplewood would save everyone before the truth came out. "I was trying to fix it," he said. I asked him why his solution involved destroying our parents' orchard and framing me as a thief. He looked at his attorneys through the glass and said, "Because you had a clean record. If people saw you as responsible, they'd never approve me as trustee." That admission revealed his entire plan. Ryan needed to disqualify me. The false withdrawals, the accusations, and the Thanksgiving expulsion were all part of creating a false record that I'd abandoned the orchard and misused estate funds. He'd built a false image of me because the real me stood in the way of his access to the trust. Ryan offered a final deal. He'd give up his beneficial interest if I convinced Maya not to refer the forgery evidence to investigators and persuaded Silvercrest to restructure the debt. He also demanded a public statement saying he'd acted to protect the family. After everything, you're still trying to save your reputation, I said. He replied that reputation was the only asset he had left. I told him that reputation wasn't something he owned, it was the trust others had in him, and he'd squandered it. His expression hardened. He accused me of enjoying his downfall and asked if taking the orchard would make me feel superior. I explained that I wasn't taking it. The trust owned Maplewood, and the court would decide if he could remain a beneficiary. You walked out at Thanksgiving like a scared child. Now you think lawyers make you powerful, he said. I told him why I'd really left. I'd recognized the false recording number. If I'd challenged him at the table, he might have destroyed the evidence before I could get a lawyer. I'd surrendered the keys to make him think his plan had worked. Ryan stared at me. The moment he'd thought I was defeated was actually the beginning of his own collapse. I told him about the cloud footage. His hands tightened on the table. I told him that Mrs. Harris was cooperating. Then I revealed the transition clause that named the qualified successor trustee. No, he whispered. Dad told me the trust would be ours. I reminded him that we were beneficiaries, not owners. When he asked who would become trustee, I didn't answer. He read it on my face. No way. Tell me this isn't true, he said. He realized that in